One of the common problems that we can deal with when we have a dog is barking. Now, it can be very annoying to both ourselves and to our neighbors. We want to correct this problem. If it's at home, there's a number of things that we can do even separately from what we might do when we're out walking. If the dog is barking and it's in the yard, we want to make sure that we always give some type of physical correction and not just leaning out the window and yelling no. The dog stops, it starts barking again in a few minutes. We've got to take the time, make the effort to go out and correct the dog so that they understand they will pay a price every time they open their mouth for that. Now, you would start off with just the use again of your metal training collar, your choke chain, having the dog on a short training line in the yard or longer if you need it to be, if you can't catch them. Go outside, give them the verbal no, run down the stairs, go get them, reinforce with a firm snap telling them no. Say, be quiet, say okay, go back in the house, wait for the dog to do it again, they bark, you go back out and you repeat the same thing. Increase the firmness of it each time. Now, if you've got a very stubborn dog, again, you want to up things. You may have to use a pinch collar. If you have just a small dog, you may find that simply just a squirt with the water bottle is sufficient. And you're just going to, give them a few good ones and tell them to be quiet. If they really don't like the water, well, that might work for you. If you have a larger dog and they're in the yard, you may want to use a garden hose every time that they're barking. You go out and you give them a good spray, but you're reinforcing it consistently. But if you're finding that you're at a point where you're not getting a response, you've got to think, well, what's the next level I can go to? You can use things such as a pop can, put about 30 pennies in the bottom of the can, put duct tape over it, make up a couple of dozen of these things, depending on how strong a bark your dog is, and you're going to open the door, say your no, throw this can down beside them. It makes a bit of a noise. It's a bit of a scare. It's a negative thing that they experience every time they open their mouth, that they're going to experience this. And this is what's going to cause them to stop barking. They're going to realize it's better if they're simply quiet, because every time they start to make the noise, you're out there with something. Now, another thing that you can use if the dog is persistent, again, is your nylon muzzle. You go out, you make a snap on your line, you muzzle your dog. And keep an eye on them when they're out there with the muzzle on. Look through your window. Make them wear the muzzle for 15 or 20 minutes or half an hour. Then go out, pet them up if they've been good, take the muzzle off, go back in the house, watch them again, and you reinforce that. You go over and over and over a couple of days in a row and see if it starts to change their behavior. Now, if you leave the situation and you drive away and your neighbors are saying, well, your dog's great when you're home, but it barks all the time when you're gone, then you would move to an electronic bark collar. This is when you have to go to work and you can't be around to correct the dog. It simply goes on the dog, clips on again, just like a regular collar might. And it's got a little battery-powered unit, a couple of probes that sit against the dog's neck, and it's operated by this little center probe here. It will sense the vibration of the dog when it's barking, and it'll give it a zap. Now, this will also, they're protected in their circuits so that if the dog continues to bark after it gets the correction, it will stop correcting after the first bark. It'll reset, and then it'll correct again. So these are good when you're away, but you don't want to simply rely on them at all times, because the dog will become collar smart to them, and you take the collar off and you may have the dog barking again. So it's better if you're able to make the correction in the first place. Now, when you're out for a walk, if your dog is barking at people passing by, other dogs, then you're going to use your command collar and make your corrections with your leash at that point. If the dog is out playing and it barks constantly while it's playing, while it's got its line on, each time it barks, you're going to run over, grab it, you're going to tell it no, run over, grab, make your corrections, say, okay, go play. Immediately you're back to nice person. Play is okay, but they cannot be barking every step of the way. People out there with their dog, they're going to throw a stick and the dog is yap, 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 yap. The people might not mind, the person with the dog doesn't mind, but everyone else in the park is annoyed by it. So let's be responsible in that way. It's much nicer to have a quiet dog, and following some of these methods, you're going to find that the dog will be much quieter.
Here's a problem that can be, as well as very common, quite annoying. Dogs that bark at everything that moves by the window. The way to correct this is to have our dogs wearing a choke chain and a small training line at all times in the house. When the dog begins to bark, move in, take hold of the line, make a firm snap, quiet. Now allow the dog the opportunity to make the mistake again. If they do, increase the firmness of the correction until the dog understands that it is to its benefit to keep quiet and calm. Don't take them away because they won't learn if you remove them from that situation. So do it with a consistency, an increasing firmness of correction, and you will, in a very short period of time, have a lot more peaceful dog, a happier dog, and a calmer household. Your electronic collar is also a good device to use when you're dealing with barking. You put the collar on the dog after you've done your basic manual training, and then you can go get in your car and drive away, pretend that you've left for the day, walk back and wait and listen. Then you can automatically correct your dog with the use of this remote transmitter. Now, people will say, well, I could get a standard bark collar, which does it automatically, and yes, you can do that as well. If you're going to invest in a collar, I would suggest invest in one that has the receiver and the transmitter where you're in control of things so that you can also use this collar for other things. You can use it in situations like digging or chewing up things if your back is turned, when you can get outside the house, look through the window, wait for the dog to do the bad thing, then you can use this to correct as well.